Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Carol Weinshell, and I'm the Vice President of Programming and Membership at Congregation Rodeph Sholom in Bridgeport, Connecticut. We do virtual coffees about twice a month on Wednesday mornings, and this one is the second of our series of businesses in Bridgeport. I'm not going to tell you about who the people are. Rather, I'm going to introduce them as they come along. I need to make sure logistically that everybody is muted. So please mute yourself. And when you're speaking, make sure that your phone is off so that we won't have any distraction. I know that's difficult and we never know if it's going to ring. So questions we'll take at the end. I'm trying very hard to run close to an hour. I expect that we probably will go over a little bit, and if we do, then we will. So without further ado, we're going to start first with Meredith Baum-Rubin, who used to be Eastern Bag for those of us who grew up in Bridgeport, and she will tell us everything that we need to know.
Okay. Thank you. So it's so great to be here. I spent many, many days and hours at Rodeph Sholom, and my grandparents were one of the first founders of Rodeph Sholom many, many years ago. So I'm delighted to be invited to talk today. So I'm going to call on my technical advisor to share a screen here.
PowerPoint is behind your face.
No.
So you just want to show the presentation.
Yeah, yes, right. Don't read me. Sorry, guys. Okay, now how do I advance it? Space, there. Good. Yes, so actually, this is a picture of our very first building. We actually started out as Bridgeport Paper Company, and the company was founded in 1918 by my great uncle Isidore Baum and my grandfather Samuel Baum. And in 1937, my grandfather and grandmother, my grandfather married my grandmother, who was the bookkeeper and at Bridgeport Paper. And they changed the name to Eastern Bag and Paper. And this was the buildings on Water Street, which is really where People's Bank is today. And what this is, it's a picture of a fire that happened as a result of the next door neighbor paint can. It happened in 1941, about 5 years after the company was bought by my grandparents. So that's why the name there is Eastern Bag and Paper. So I just press the bar. This one? This one happened. This one? Okay. Okay. So we then moved across the street, and we were actually next to the Wurtzel family, their wholesale distributorship of food, and actually next to the Manasevich family, who were the family that founded Fairfield Department Store, were our neighbors on either side, and they were very good friends of my grandparents. And at the time, you could see we sold a lot of stuff, including school supplies, bulbs, and a lot of things, that we do not sell today, but that was our building. So in 1968, we moved to Arnston Avenue, which is the way it's pronounced in Bridgeport, near, I think, the only thing I don't know how to do is stop it. So this is going to take 5 minutes, so stay here. Oh, stop. Okay. So I moved to Arnston Avenue. We moved to Arnston Avenue, and my grandmother was in charge of our retail division, and we had a pretty robust party store, which everybody knew more about the party store, which you can see in the front of the building there. But in fact, the party store was about 2% of our business, and most of our business was in wholesale distributing of cleaning supplies and food service packaging. And we pretty much distributed in Fairfield County to food service establishments, some schools, and Bridgeport Hospital, and some hospitals as well. But Fairfield County was our main area. And this is a picture of our party store. So everybody knew my grandmother perched on her perch. And so I joined the company in 1979. And at the time we were working in Bridgeport. And unfortunately, my mother was working in the company at the time as well. And unfortunately, about 4 years after I joined the company, my father passed away. And there were many rumors that we were two women and we didn't know what we were doing. So my mother and I decided that we would buy a company to show the world that we were in business, to do business. So we bought a distributorship in Hartford, Connecticut, and that made us more into a Connecticut company. Plus we were growing a lot, and we had like 3 other warehouses in Bridgeport. So we really needed to consolidate all of our operations into one facility, and that became the job of my mother. And she found a property in Milford, right off of exit 40. And she worked with a developer to build our company from scratch. And so we moved into 200 Research Drive in 1987. And I hope my picture isn't hiding this, but Rabbi Stein is right next to me. Are these pictures blocking the rest of the picture? Oh, here. Yeah. So Rabbi Stein is standing next to me, and my mother's in the front of me, and our bankers are around us. And that's the mayor cutting the ribbon there. So I'm trying to move this, and now I can't. Oh, I'm sorry. Wish you were here. I cannot move this. There you go. Okay, so this is just a little bit of history about EBP. After that, we decided to expand into Massachusetts, and so we bought a company called Salem Paper, and you can't get there from here to Salem, and so we then moved to Tewksbury, Mass, and so then we became a New England company, and then in 2002 we greenfielded, and we opened up in Cranberry, New Jersey, in the back of a building. And then we expanded and moved in 2010 into 125,000 square feet. I have 2 more minutes of propaganda about EBP just to explain from our beginnings to where we are. We decided that in order to differentiate ourselves, we had to not only sell product, but to offer training and other value-added services. So we actually install cleaning systems, for your dishwashing and for laundry, dispensing systems, and plus we have a training academy in each of our 3 facilities where we have people come in, or we can go to your facility, like we'll go to a large hospital and train all their janitorial staff on proper cleaning methodologies. And this is just our 3 facilities. And this is our distribution area now. And this is just some of the extra stuff that we do. And we have various specialists. So if you have a cleaning problem, we will call in. We have 2 chemical specialists that will go in and help determine how. So that is my presentation. And wanted to take you from the very beginning to where we are today.
Okay, Meredith, that was great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've learned about what used to be Eastern Bag and Paper.
Okay, she's coming on.
Some of us remember from a different time. Meredith has to leave, and this is going to be a little
No,
out
I'm
of.
fine, Carol. I'm fine. I thought it was last week, so I'm good.
Oh,
today.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
so, good.
Perfect,
Yep,
perfect.
yep.
Okay, so I'm going to invite Renee Jacobs to talk next about Dana Brothers. And Renee, I'm going to ask you that when you want the pictures, let me know and I'll pull them up.
You're assuming I can remember what pictures I gave you.
Well, you just tell me if you want me to pull, whenever you want me to pull them
Okay.
up.
I don't have as nice a presentation as Meredith did, which was beautiful. I didn't even think of that. I guess I could have, but basically all the information that I'm getting is from my uncle, who has been in the business since he's about 12 years old. He's the only one that's left, and from what he really remembers. I was not involved in the business at all. It was a retail showroom and upholstery factory that was started by my grandfather, Nissim Beyna. He came to New York in 1925 from Turkey, and he already had two brothers here, one in New York and one in New Jersey. Apparently, when he first came here, he was making slipcovers because his older brother had started a slipcover business. And then my grandfather also became a sample maker. He used to make the chairs that other upholsterers would have to copy. He had no training. He was on the job learning. When, I'm just reading my notes. When he met my grandmother was the sewer. She did a lot of slipcover sewing. And in 1941, he decided to go into business with a brother. He had a choice of going to New Jersey with one brother or going to Connecticut with the other brother. My grandmother did not like the taste of the water in New Jersey, so they decided to go to Connecticut, and that's how they ended up. Their first store was in Stratford, Connecticut, on Fairfield Avenue. It was a small shop where they mostly did upholstery and slipcovers. My grandmother, as I said, was a sewer, and my grandfather and his brother Leo did the upholstery. You might have a picture of a pretty, what I think is an ugly couch. This is the kind of stuff that he did.
Just give me a minute.
Yes. And
Okay, can you see these pictures?
yeah, I could.
Okay,
So
I hope
you
everybody else.
go to the first picture.
There we are.
That is my grandfather sitting in the office. And the second picture, my uncle said that they didn't really advertise in newspapers. Most of their advertisement was a big page in the yellow pages. So this was some of the advertising that they did. They did slipcovers, draperies, upholstery. This is when they were on Fairfield Avenue in Stratford. And then they moved a couple of blocks away towards the city limit of Bridgeport and moved to Barnum Avenue, where they had a factory. It was a 2-story building. The factory was upstairs, and the downstairs was a small showroom that they used basically to show the work that they did, their couches and their chairs. That was really the extent of the showroom. You can go to the next picture. Oh, this is already late. All right, let's go back to one more. Go back to the first one. I mean, the second one. Yeah, that
This
one.
one?
Yeah,
Let's see if I can make it a little bigger. Okay, there we go.
that's fine. It's just showing you one of them was on Fairfield Avenue and then the other one was on, they moved. In let's see. Well, my uncle, Erwin Beyna, and my mother, Julia Beyna, actually worked in the store from when they were about 11 or 12 years old. My mother answered phones and did the clerical work. My uncle, Erwin, was a gopher. He took the furniture apart. I think he liked it the best because when he took apart furniture from somebody's house, he found money in there. You know how you're always dropping money in between cushions. And then he would prep it for my grandfather and his brother Leo to reupholster it. Leo moved to California, and in 1948, my mother met my father, who went into the family business, another Irwin. My father was naturally a decorator. He had no schooling, but he had an eye for style, clothes, and homes. In 1949, they decided to expand the business and went to North Avenue in Bridgeport. That's the second ad that they had that's showing that they were in North Avenue. Okay, you can go to the next picture. That's my father. The way that they used to advertise was the newspaper would basically do a little blurb on what the business was like. And this just shows that it was started in 1941 by my grandfather. And my father is showing some fabrics. He was the salesman, he was the decorator, he was a slipcover maker, he was the drapery maker. I mean, he did everything. On the right, he would love me to show this picture. He's sitting there sewing in his underwear. I have no idea why he's in his underwear, but that's what he was doing. Let's see. They had a very, very large showroom in the front. I don't know what the next picture is. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, okay. This is still an old picture. On the top, it's showing my grandfather and his brother Leo on the left. My grandfather's by the couch, his brother Leo. And my father is kind of kneeling down. I'm not sure who the one in the back is. It's probably my uncle, Irwin, was the last one to have this business. My sister is saying that my father was sewing his own pants, so on the other one. It was a family-owned business. There were two people that were not in the family that worked for him. One was Angel, who did a lot of sewing, and the other one was Joey, who did a lot of the deliveries. So on North Avenue, they had a very large showroom in the front and a very large factory in the back. Unfortunately, around 1967, there was an ice storm that caused an electrical short, which in turn caused a huge fire, and the showroom was totally destroyed. But miraculously, the factory stayed intact. They continued to do upholstery, but then decided to buy some land in Fairfield, and they built a building on Black Rock Turnpike. This is showing my uncle on the left, Irwin, who was the main upholsterer. My grandfather did not believe in teaching you how to do it. You had to watch. And so all he did was watch how my grandfather upholstered the furniture, and my uncle in turn became a terrific upholsterer up until he actually still does small jobs now. In 1970, there was the grand opening of the Black Rock Turnpike store. My grandfather had already retired, and my parents, aunt and uncle ran the business. That's my mother in the showroom talking to a couple that was a customer, and it was a very personal business. There were actually 3 furniture stores in the Fairfield area or Bridgeport area. It was Boehner Brothers, Breiner's, and Brown's, all the B's. They were all family owned, and unfortunately, none of them are left. In 1984, when the blue laws in Connecticut were basically abolished, my parents decided to close the retail part of their business because they didn't want to be open 7 days a week. Since it was a family business, it meant less time spent with the family. So they closed the Black Rock Turnpike store and opened a small shop. This was the Black Rock Turnpike. Oh, the one on the left is the North Avenue store. After the fire, they just did upholstery, and the landlord did not want to renew the lease because they wanted the land to put a car lot on there. Then the one on the right is the building that they had on Black Rock Turnpike. I'm not sure the corner street, but it's in front of the Loyalty Lodge Cemetery. So I'm not sure what that cross street is. My sister might know. So they closed the business on Black Rock Turnpike. They opened a small shop on Charles Street in Bridgeport that only did upholstery and small and decorating services, working with other decorators. In 2000, my father retired and moved to Florida. My uncle and aunt ran the business another 4 years, and then until they too retired and moved to Florida. The Baina name was very well known in the furniture decorating world. There was Baina Decorators in the Bronx, which unbeknownst to me, most of my friends that I have in New York grew up in the Bronx, and every Jewish family bought their furniture there. There was Ben Baina and Son in Bridgeport that does window treatments. I think they're still around, I'm not sure. And then there was Baina Decorators in Rockland County, New York. They were all separate businesses, but the same industry, and all the descendants of my grandfather and his two brothers. Unfortunately, no children or grandchildren were interested in taking over the business, but my sister, Cheryl, and her ex-husband opened a furniture store in Naugatuck, Connecticut for about 16 years. My grandfather, as they say, was probably rolling around in his grave. He would have been very, very proud. And today, my father has passed away. My mother has passed away. My uncle lives down here in Florida with his wife, Ann. They, up until, maybe 2 years ago, he was still doing upholstery down here in his garage. But as he's gotten older, it's harder for him to move couches and chairs and all that stuff. So he does pillows and cushions and balances, things that he can manage to handle. And that's about it. And
That's
thank
great.
you. The story of
What
Baina.
What a history. That's wonderful.
And all of this is everything that I've gotten from my uncle, or if my sisters remember everything, but otherwise, I wasn't really so involved.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to ask that we hold questions until the end so we get everybody going. And that was fascinating. And I learned so much from you while we were going through the pictures, but this was great. Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
Okay, Jackie Lipnick-Garelick, you're up next.
Okay.
Let me try to spotlight you, maybe. There you are.
Okay. Okay. The business was the B. Lipnick Supply Company.
Oh,
It was-
Jackie, I'm sorry. Let me know when you want me to pull up the pictures.
You know what? I'm going to do it at the end just to save
fine.
time. Okay.
Okay.
So if we don't get to it.
That's fine.
Okay. B. Lipnick Supply Company. It was began in 1917 and it closed in 2018. It had 101 year run. The last location was located at Main Street, just south of North Avenue. And it was run by 3 generations of Lipnicks, my grandfather, my father and uncle, and then my sister and myself. And some of the fourth generation, my son and my sister's son, worked there while they were in school. Sometimes they, during vacations or in the summer. My grandfather, Ben, began the business when he was 26 years old. He started by repairing stoves and sold stovepipe and parts for stoves. And the story was he would bring it out to the street and it was sold off the sidewalk. That location, we believe, was on East Main Street. Later on, he took plumbing and heating on, and that required a lot more parts. And I've been told the labor force story. Sometimes if they had a truck, they had to get day laborers to help unload the truck. So how they did it in those days, my grandfather got in his station wagon. He went downtown Bridgeport and Main Street, and there was a corner where all the day laborers stayed. So he would pick out 2 or 3 people, and the first thing he did was take them to breakfast. They were very appreciative. A lot of them were hungry. A lot of them drank instead of eating. So he thought if he filled their stomach, they would do a better job working. And they liked it because they had a free breakfast. And eventually his 2 sons joined him in the business, my father Morris and my uncle Irving. My grandfather hired a bookkeeper just out of high school, 18 years old, and she worked for us for 70 years. She worked until she had a stroke and passed away. For 70 years, that was a long haul for her. She was a bookkeeper for my grandfather, an office manager for my father, and for my sister and myself, she was a general manager. During that time, they bought the next door business, which was a kosher meat market owned by the Heirs family. I remember going with my mother when I was young, and there was a fish market. They bought those two businesses, they attached it to our building, and it became a showroom, which they're not too much use for in those days because they put fixtures on display, but everything was white. So it was just which toilet, which sink, and the stuff was all bought by the plumbers. My father and my uncle took over completely in 1962 after my grandfather passed away. And some of the plumbers related to me how he opened accounts with them. He talked to them. It was a handshake deal. And he would say to them, don't pay us right away. Get your feet on the ground, pay the bills you have to pay to stay in business. And then down the line, a few months, you can start paying us. They had a very busy counter and they had to do something because people wouldn't complain while they were waiting. So what they did, they used Pacelli's Bakery, which was a family-owned bakery off Madison Avenue, just north of North Avenue, across from the jail and across from the new Central High School. And every day, Pacelli's would deliver boxes of pastry, Danish pastry, muffins, donuts, and they served coffee and this really worked. In fact, it got even busier in the morning and very busy lunchtime because plumbers would come in, get their supplies, and have breakfast and lunch. The showroom was getting a little more busy. There were colors now. American Standard started doing blue and green and yellow, and the plumbers were still buying the fixtures. When my sister and I took over officially in 1984, after my father passed away, and we ran the business for another 34 years, business was changing. We had to update the showroom. We put in rooms, displays. We had half walls, wallpapered it, and made it with different fixtures, different colors. And we tried to make it so people could see what it would be like in their house, because the business got busier in the showroom. My brother-in-law, Lee, became a showroom manager. He worked the counter and he worked the showroom. People started buying their own fixtures. In fact, the plumbers would send them down to pick out what they wanted. So this way they could see what was there. As colors became discontinued, we had to change the room setting and change the showroom to update. Eventually, the two big colors became white and linen, which is a kind of off-white. So we always tried to keep toilets and sinks in stock for people who had a blue bathroom or a yellow bathroom. And this way they didn't have to change the whole bathroom or buy a white fixture. Although American Standard no longer sold the colors, other companies made them and we kept them for people. I think we depended on our advertising was word of mouth. And we did a lot of clothing and pencils and calendars and notebooks with our names on it. And the plumbers liked it. And sometimes we did sweatshirts and we did jackets when they bought boilers. So they advertised for us. They loved getting the clothes and they advertised for us. I think all three generations, we learned kind of from our experience and our mistakes. And that was basically how things ran and some of the differences between the generations. By the time my sister and I took over, there was a 3 or 4 page application. My father eventually had a 1-page application. So things got a lot more difficult and different. Carol, do we have time to show some pictures?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Just give me a minute to pull them up. I have to find yours.
The first one's a group picture there, I think.
Okay, hold on. Let me try to. Just give me a second. Okay, there we go.
Okay, this is a picture. Now, this was in the 50s. The person from left to right, the person on the left was from American Standard. Litnick's became the official American Standard distributor in the Bridgeport area. And there was a lot more connection directly with the manufacturer in those days. And I don't know if he brought this banner. I'm not sure why he was there, but that was the American Standard distributor. The next person is my uncle. And the one shaking hands with the American Standard fella is my grandfather. And the last one is my father. Okay, next. I told you about a woman that worked for us for 70 years. Her name was Louise. This is Louise in the office. She was a bookkeeper. She became an office manager and then a general manager. Okay, next. This is my sister Sharon, and I wanted you to see the background of the picture she's in. There were lots and lots and lots, thousands of plumbing supply parts, little tiny parts. So we had all kinds of bins for them. It was almost like an old-fashioned hardware store, if you've ever been in an old-fashioned hardware store. There was a lot of storage area. Downstairs, we had warehouses because we had small fixtures and large fixtures and all of these plumbing parts. Okay, next. This is my brother-in-law, Lee, in the showroom. And we had a working whirlpool and a working air pool, and the shower that he's standing by, the faucets, everything was working so people could see what they were buying. He could change the items in there if people wanted to see a different faucet, how it worked. So it was a workable showroom. Okay, next. And then this is myself. I'm standing in front of a display. There were two bathtubs. One was a low standard tub and the other one was a deeper tub so that people could see the difference. And we had to make use of every ounce of space. Behind me, you'll see there are the tub and shower faucets. And on the ceiling over to the left are the accessories. We had them lined against the ceiling. So we tried to make use of the space the best way we could. And basically that's the 101 years of business for Lipnick's. Thank you.
Well, that also was great. And you were a neighbor of my dad's.
Is that
Well,
right?
Yes, yes. And when we hear from
From the
Claire.
chickens.
Well, he was the meat market on Main and Grant. So thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much. That was great.
You.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is David. We need to.
I think I'm
Okay.
unmuted.
Yes, you are. Perfect. And
Okay.
you let me know when you want the pictures, David, and I'll pull them up.
Okay, very good. Good morning, everybody. Hochberg Jewelers had almost 100 years, but we closed in June 2014. But I'll give you a little background. My grandparents, Sarah and Herman Hochberg, immigrated from Russia to the United States in 1912. And for a few years were in New York City. Eventually, they found their way to Bridgeport, where he opened Hochberg Jewelers on a corner of East Main and Stratford Avenue. That store stayed in business until 1959, and that's the year, unfortunately, my grandfather passed away, but he also retired prior to that. Our father had opened the second store, Harold Hochberg, on East Main Street in 1951. It remained there till 1974. And in 1974, we moved the store to Trumbull on White Plains Road. It's remained there until 2014. Over the years, we kept expanding and adding more lines, and we also did a lot of corporate business with a lot of well-known companies for the longevity of all their employees. One of the companies we dealt with for many, many years was Remington Products, which down near Seaside Park, where UB is. Unfortunately, they moved to China, their whole operation. Carol, put up the frames now. Can you hear me, Carol?
Yes, I can. I'm just looking. Hold
Oh,
on.
okay. All right.
Okay, you got to give me a minute, David, to find.
Okay.
Can you keep, I don't know where, here you are. Okay. Let me just get it. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Oh, that's not good. Okay. Okay, give me a minute to save it. I'm not sure where we are, but we will be.
Okay.
Hold on. I promise we'll be there. Okay, this is very odd. Can you keep talking and I'll keep trying to figure out what happened to it?
Okay. The Trumbull store, we were open 2 nights a week, Thursday and Friday nights till 8:30, because a lot of people couldn't come to pick up repairs or shop until after they got out of there where they worked. We had a very, very big repair business. And from repairs, people said, well, if I trust you with my jewelry, I'm going to buy something here. And we had a wonderful reputation in the Bridgeport area. And our customer base was the greater Bridgeport area, including Fairfield, Trumbull, Monroe, and even the Valley. A couple stories that I like to share with you is one, and hopefully Carol will have the frame up.
I'm working on it. I
Okay.
am.
All right. John Simone, he was a retired art teacher who taught in Fairfield and Trumbull. He came to our store one day and he said, I'm looking for something special for my anniversary and to give to my wife, 50 years of marriage. I asked him, what is it? He said, I'm looking for a descending dove, whether in gold or silver. I said, I check around and see what I can do for you. He said, I've been all over and no one will help me. I says, give me a few days. I called a company, Creed Manufacturing in Attleboro, Massachusetts. I spoke to the owner. He says, yes, we used to make those. I don't have them anymore. I says, you still have the mold for it? Yes, I do. He made one up for me and he brought it down and shipped it to me.
Can you see it now?
Yes,
David?
yes,
Okay.
yes, I can.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. This is the frame and the John Simone made up with the writing about his story with us. He was tickled pink, and from there, he had 2 grandsons, and they bought both, because of that order, bought both their engagement rings from us, which was a nice honor. And he said to them, don't go anywhere else. Hochberg will take care of you. And that was a nice feeling. Can we have the next photo? We always wanted to be community active in Trumbull and the greater Bridgeport area. And if you remember, many years ago, the Trumbull soccer girls team won several years. We gave them 1-year pendants for each of the players and also 1-year rings. And this is a thank you from one of their coaches for helping them out with their dedication of their award. Can we have the next one? This is a letter from, as you can see, Captain Beard. He was the captain of the USS John F. Kennedy aircraft carrier. Briefly, Nancy Randolph, as you see her name there, and her husband went to visit their son on the aircraft carrier in Norfolk, Virginia. Mark, while they were there, they visited different things in Virginia Beach. Unfortunately, one day they crossed the road, a car speeding down. Unfortunately, it was a drunken driver. They both got hit. Mr. Randolph passed away from his injuries. But Mrs. Randolph wanted to thank the Navy and Mr. Beard, Captain Beard, for helping them out with the arrangements for the burial at sea of her husband. And this, and thank you, we made up a big, and I mean big, pewter bowl. It was all engraved. It was shipped to the John F. Kennedy while they were in the Gulf, during the Gulf War. I asked Mrs. Randolph if she would get in touch with the Captain Beard and let us know that it was received on time there. And it was, and here's the letter. Okay, we have the next one. This is a thank you note from Mrs. John Lodge, the governor's wife, where our grandfather had fixed watches and other repairs for her. And this is a thank you to my grandfather, Herman Hochberg, from Mrs. Lodge. And this was dated 1953. Okay, I think that's it, unless there's more. Oh, there is. The Connecticut Post was looking for longstanding family businesses in the greater Bridgeport area, and this was in 1999. At that time, we were in business 83 years. We spoke with them, and they wrote the whole article, and then it was published in the Sunday paper in August of 1999. And I think that's it. We wanted to stay in business over 100 years, but we had new landlords. We didn't own the building. So my brother and I, Marshall, decided that we would close. And unfortunately, we did in June of 2014. I still am active with some of my vendors and customers. And I keep busy, but I do miss my store. And we wanted to go 100 plus years, but I guess it wasn't in the cards. And that's it.
Okay, David, that was great. Thank you. Some history for a place I knew well. I appreciate.
Yes.
I appreciate. We all appreciate. I'm sure there'll be questions when Claire is finished. So next up is Claire Herrer. Claire, where are you? Give me a minute. Let me.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I probably lived in the Madison Avenue area than any of you that have been on this time or the last time, because in the late night, around 1917, my grandfather moved the family from New York to Bridgeport, bought a house on Federal Street, and lived on the second floor because came from Europe, you had to live higher up, not on the first floor. And when my mother got married and my father was in the Navy, he gave my parents the downstairs flat, and my parents stayed there until I was junior in college, when my grandmother died and Nidens finally bought the house for their parking lot. I just want to say something before I get into the business. Growing up on the Madison Avenue area was like you never had to leave. You had 5 butchers, 2 bakeries. You had Moonshine Sunshine, which nobody mentioned last time. You had everything going there. But the thing I remember most is upstairs from Nidens, there was a piano teacher named Mary Byington. And Harry Niden allowed her to live in her studio. She was, spinster, and I started lessons there with her when I was 4 years old, but he allowed her to live there and he took care of her until she died. So that was like wonderful. But anyway, and if you grew up and went to Shelton School, which David Stone did, but he's not on, Richard Belzer was a classmate of ours and the school clown. And, those were all memories of that area. So back to the glass store. My grandfather and his son and his brother William went AWOL from the Austrian army and came to the United States under the name Clark. And one by one, they brought out as many of the rest family members as they could under the family name, which is Reese. We always thought Clark was something to do with the family, K-L-A-H-R, until we researched for our family tree and found out that it was the glazier my grandfather had apprenticed under in Austria. So our name has nothing to do with the family at all. He came to Bridgeport around 1917, 1916, and has opened up Samuel J. Clark Glass. And his brother went to White Plains and opened up William Clark Glass Company. Oh, sorry about that. Decline. Sorry, I thought I turned it off.
Okay.
Once you were, the original glass store was on Middle Street, Bridgeport, downtown Bridgeport, next to the fire department. And unfortunately, my pictures all went to my son when I moved to Florida, but there was one of me in diapers on the glass table while my mother was cutting glass. So nobody got out of that business. They later moved to Washington Avenue, North Washington. Oh, there's the house on Federal Street. And that must be when they first bought it, because later on the upstairs porch was enclosed and everything. And it was the first house directly behind Nidens. And that's where I grew up. Then it went to, no, and that's the one, no, wait, we're not there yet. We first went to North Washington Avenue, and when the connection to the Turnpike came in, 95 came in, they bought up that store, Jenny's, everybody, we were all there, and moved to North Main Street, which is the last picture. Carol, the next picture right there. The earliest picture I have is this one.
You want me to go to your grandfather in the truck?
Yeah, go to my grandfather. That is the first picture we have of a truck from the glass company. And that's my grandfather in there driving around, peddling his wares. And as I said, everybody in the family had to work in the business. My two uncles worked in the business with my grandfather until the war broke out. And then they both went into the Navy, and my grandfather called back the three daughters, my Aunt Say, my Aunt Bertha, and my mother. My mother at the time was a fashion designer in New York City, having graduated Pratt, but had to come back and help run the store. And they never left afterwards. They all died still working. The store became the largest privately owned glass store in the state of Connecticut at one point. This is an old picture because it looked much nicer later on. Right now it's a car wash. The car wash next door bought it from us and turned it into a truck car wash. Everybody worked in the store, my cousins, myself, everyone. When I came home from school on vacation, I had to work in the store also because nobody trusted anyone. If my parents went on vacation, I had to go sit at my mother's desk and do her job because God forbid any of her brothers or sisters should touch her work. My Uncle Hy did all the automotive glass. My Uncle Ben went out on the road with all the workers. My Aunt Sadie did the estimating and bookkeeping. And my mother was the secretary, bookkeeper, typist, and everything else. And my Aunt Bertha worked in the shop doing the walk-in orders. The store never modernized. My mother was still typing on her Underwood manual typewriter when she died. The only modernization they did was get a fax machine. She broke down and did that. Refused to allow a computer in or anything like that. But they were a very generous family. They were always giving glass. They were always doing jobs. I remember when I was in elementary school, the windows had these slanted glass frames that you could put a glass in to keep the wind from blowing on you. And for some reason, every Christmas, that's what the teachers got as a gift from my brother and me. Jackie mentioned about the calendar. We also put out a calendar, but our calendar on every day of the week gave a historic event that happened. And once I hung it up in my classroom, every teacher wanted to have one. So I ended up distributing them. We had people coming in from all over to get the calendar. And my grandfather must have thought he was part of the mafia because he always walked around with a big wad of money wrapped around a little Dillinger. And every cop in the city knew him, and at Christmas would come in for their bottle of booze. We used to joke and say the only way you got out of working in the business was to die, because all of our workers stayed with us until they died. Nobody ever retired. And unfortunately, everybody in the family died still working. As a matter of fact, my mother at 87 was still working. No charging, everything had to be cash or check. She didn't trust those machines. And the family, as being so generous, Debbie reminded me, my grandfather had bought 5 plots, a lot of land in Trumbull, where the police station is on Edison Road belonged to us, where the houses across the street belonged to us. But on the corner of Main and Middlebrook, he had bought 5 lots of land, hoping that each of his kids would build and move up there. But since they worked together every day and night, they decided not going to happen. So my Aunt Bertha lived in the house on the property already, which had been an inn. And when Trumbull was in need of land to build the synagogue, the family got together and gave up 3 plots of land, for which is now B'nai Torah. There was 1 piece of land left behind my aunt's house, which I ended up with to build my house up and raise my son in Trumbull. But the Clark family was known wherever you went. As a matter of fact, one of the horror stories of being the Clark was we got a new principal at the school I taught with, and I had been away, and the kids broke a neighbor's window on the playground. And one of the teachers said to the principal, "Don't worry, Claire will take care of it when she gets back." And so when I walked back into school, the principal, who I did not get along with, said to me, "You have a hell of a nerve teaching and taking a paycheck away from someone else." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you're the Clark family." And people didn't realize there were 23 of us, immediate family, that were supported by that store, plus all the people we had to hire to work. We were a union shop. So we all were comfortable, but never wealthy, is how I put it. And as everyone died off, my brother became the sole owner of the store. He was the only one of the 13 grandchildren that really showed any interest in the business at all. And he kept it going until 2017. Unfortunately, he died a year later, so he never enjoyed his retirement. But we all owe a lot to it. It raised, like I said, supported 23 people, was well known in all of Fairfield County. We even used to have to go up to Hartford to do jobs and everything. It was a very respected building because we kept it honest. And it's missed.
Thank you, Claire. This was great. You were terrific. Everybody was terrific. Because I grew up here in Bridgeport, and because my dad was in Bull's Head on Main Street, Claire's car glass was a neighbor across the driveway. Jackie was up the street, and undoubtedly the place for coffee and was the same place. So I am going to ask you now that if you have questions, we have we can go 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have questions, just raise your hand and I'll try to distribute them to the right people. Questions, comments?
Claire, I want to make a comment. In talking about Boehner Brothers, my mother, the year before my bas mitzvah, went in and bought a dining room set out of a catalog that had to be handmade. We waited 9 months for it and got worried about it arriving in time. And I still have that. It's in my dining room. I had it refurbished. It's solid wood. It's gorgeous. Everyone that comes into my house goes, "Where did you get that?" And their furniture lasts forever. I just want to let you.
It did. It lasted forever.
Yeah, I'm so proud of that dining room set.
Oh,
It's right next door to the dining room.
Very nice.
Mhm.
Nice
Great,
to hear.
nice comments. Cy, where are you? You put a really nice comment in the chat.
I did, yes. I still remember those radio commercials that David and his brother Marshall used to record on the radio. They just came across as such great guys. I just liked them, just listening to them on the radio. It was wonderful. And it stays with me today. Thank you.
And David helped my sister with her engagement ring, and it was wonderful. So thank you, David. Geraldine, Bob.
David, you can unmute if you can unmute. There you
Yes,
go.
David-
I do remember your sister.
David loaned me a necklace to wear with my gown for my son's wedding, and I returned it.
She came in a little threatening, but that's all right. We still love each other.
David, just because you had a crush on me. I learned that later in life, that in high school he had a crush on me.
You graduated before me.
I'm sorry, I'm an old lady. What can I tell you?
Oh, you look good. You look good.
You're still a kid.
Hey, he's 73 in April, God willing.
There are a number of us here who went to school together.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Yep.
Sure.
North Central.
I heard Sheila, did you have a comment?
Yes, I wanted to comment to Claire that my sister-in-law is Marilyn Reese Leaf.
Oh my God. Yes, how wonderful.
Your first cousins, right?
Yes. Well, to my mother. So she's my second cousin. And a story about
second
her,
cousin.
maybe about 10 years ago, I got a phone call from Israel. And it turned out to be Marilyn's daughter.
Oh, Linda.
Yes, she was doing a family tree. And I don't know
Yes,
how
yes.
I'm the one whose number she got or anything, but it was unbelievable. And she sent me some pictures and stuff from the family in Austria. So
Oh,
it's
yes.
a full
Oh,
circle.
my.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
me
have
too.
to, when I speak to her, I'll have to tell her that you were part of our wonderful
Absolutely.
program this morning. Thank you.
Claire,
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking to you about every plaque has a story because you've got history for the Clars who are listed at Rodeph Sholom. We'll be talking.
Okay, and one other thing I just want to mention about Federal Madison Avenue, which I reminisce with a couple of people about. In front of Nidens, there was a house that Jane Koenig grew up in, and there was a newsstand. It was a shack. It was on cinder blocks, 2 steps up, and it was run by a war veteran named Chuck. And he ran that until he died. But it was the place where you stopped walking by on the way to Shelton School and home to pick up your penny candies and the newspaper every day. And that's one of my fondest memories, was Chuck's.
Meredith, you're shaking your head. Are these memories? You can unmute.
Yep. No, I'm remembering some of these places, and others too.
Okay. Erica, did you have a comment? You can
Yes,
unmute.
thank you. Meredith, I remember shopping. I'm sorry. I remember shopping in the 1970s with my aunt, Mrs. Lebovitz, who was a caterer. It
Sure.
was so much fun helping
Oh, yeah.
her pick up goods, and that's my one of my story. I'm also cousin to Melba Nidens, Claire, Harry. Melba is my cousin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so when I came to this country in 1970, we loved Madison Avenue. It was to us a wonderful place. I was a new immigrant, so my parents and we were on Madison Avenue daily, doing shopping and you know, the butcher and bakery and at supply store. Let's see who else I'm sorry, who was the second presenter? I forgot. I made a note for myself. But anyway, the stores were wonderful. Thank you for sharing all these stories, wonderful pictures and history. Thank you, Carol, for organizing.
Thank you, Carol. Wonderful job organizing.
Right.
Wonderful.
Great.
Yeah,
Do we have
yeah.
any other comments?
Beautiful, Carol. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jeremy, do you have I heard you have a story about David. Not to
Oh, boy.
put you on the
Well-
spot or anything.
Well, thanks, Carol. I probably have a few stories with David. I'll keep
Be
it.
nice.
I'll keep it high level and nice. I would
Okay.
say that
I'm
my now wife Liz accepted my proposal at Campo Beach with a diamond from Hochberg Jewelers. So that Carol is probably my best story there.
That's a
Thank you,
great.
Jeremy.
That is a
I lost my internet. Carol, I wasn't on because I lost my internet. I just.
Oh, Edith, I'm sorry. It's being recorded, Edith, so you'll be able to watch it. I'm sorry about the internet. We have no control over that, but we missed you.
Took just about an hour to fix it. Yeah,
Oh,
so I just-
my.
Carol, I just want to mention, I have great memory of Mrs. Hogberg. She was my neighbor here. And we used to go to Rodeph Sholom together, David's mom.
Thank you.
She was a nice lady.
Thank you.
Very nice lady, very special.
Andy, did you have a comment you wanted to make publicly?
At the moment. Meanwhile, all 6 Republican senators agree with Democrats.
Hey, Jackie. Carol?
Who's that?
Yep, Carol.
Yes,
Ernie.
Ernie.
I'd like to say a special hello to Meredith. Meredith, many years ago, I was the store manager on Ironston Avenue.
Oh, of course.
I enjoyed it. It was a nice place to work for. You were outstanding there.
Thank
You
you.
were the big honcho there, but you acknowledged everyone there.
Party time.
It was a pleasure. I left to want to better things, but I still have fond memories of your entire family.
Thank you so much.
Jerry, of course. How
Thank
could you forget? Never. I mean, he was a guy above. He was the personality person. And again, thank you for giving me the privilege to work with you guys.
Well, thank you.
By the way, my name is Ernie Tischler.
I remember, Ernie.
Do you have any other questions or comments?
Jackie, I ate donuts for probably 4 decades until 2018. What a great place.
Who's saying, who's talking? I can't.
Jacobs
Bernie
Bernie
Jacobs.
Jacobs.
Oh, Bernie, yes.
from Custom Hall, and we
I
make cabinets
remember,
and everything
Bernie.
else, right?
I
And
remember.
Claire, I
you.
have one question for you. Who was your relative with the blue hair?
Oh, purple, my Aunt Bertha.
Purple. Used to go in there and there was
Everything had
somebody
to be
with the purple
purple.
hair.
Yeah, her purple hair, nails, clothes, even her
Yeah.
sheets, dishes, everything was purple.
Again, it goes back many decades.
When my son played a Pop Warner for Trumbull, they had purple jackets, so I had to get her one.
Hi, Bernie.
Okay, so where are we? Any other comments, questions? Mike Klein?
Yeah, one of the things I used to, after I moved to Bridgeport in the 80s, I owned 2 laundromats in Bridgeport on Main Street. One at Brookside and one where Burger King is. And the 2 stores I always ended up using was clear glass. When windows were broken or anything like that, I had them even do the whole front because one of the stores had a indented front. So we brought the whole thing store level, front level. And the other one was Lipnick because I'd always go to get parts there for plumbing supplies, motors, and everything else that I needed. So I would go there in the morning because I know the donuts were fresher there.
I remember, Michael. I remember a lot of you coming in. It was always
Yes, yeah.
nice. It was great to see people I knew. And a lot of you, I dealt with you, Claire's mother, her aunt, a bunch of you. I did deal with them and her brother. So it was really great. It was like a camaraderie, especially when another Jew had a business and you knew them, and my kids knew Michael's daughter, and it was that kind of a thing. It was great.
And my neighbor, when I moved to Shelton, was one of your salesmen, well, Jay Lewis.
Oh, yes. He worked for us for a long time.
Yes.
A lot of employees work 30 and 40 years and more.
So I have a couple of things to wrap this up. First of all, I can't thank you all enough for saying yes, for doing what you did, for sharing your pictures, sharing your lives, sharing your stories. Your stories are the next thing I'm going to tell you about. We have this project at Rodeph Sholom called Every Plaque Has a Story. And what we're doing is documenting as many as we can to get snippets, snapshots into the people's lives. I feel that the only way we can track them and know about them is from the people who know them best. If you have a plaque for a family or friend at Rodeph Sholom, please be in touch with me. Otherwise, you can be absolutely positive I will reach out to you. There is a link on our website, rodepsholom.com, that takes you directly to a digital form, which potentially will make it easier for you. That's Every Plaque Has a Story. Now, I told you, hang on, Claire, before I forget, because this is number 2 of our series of memories of Bridgeport businesses, I want you to know that before I finished this one, lining up people, I already got names to reach out to invite to number 3. But then I've had people approach me and say, I want to be part of number 3. So there will be a number 3. I haven't set the date yet. It's so overwhelmingly positive, and I hope it makes you people feel as good as it makes me feel to be able to get together, share the stories, share the history. It's fabulous. I'm very, very excited about this. I'm excited for Rodeph Sholom, and I'm excited for all of you. Your stories are fabulous. Claire, I didn't forget. You're up.
One thing I want to share about Rodeph Sholom, Friend Hall, and I don't know if they must have taken them down by now, had black antique mirrors in the hall lining the walls. And the way they got them was in 3rd grade of Hebrew school, all my friends were going to Rodeph Sholom, and I was stuck at an Orthodox Hebrew school. I rebelled and refused to go. And I said, if I couldn't go to Rodeph Sholom with all my friends, I wasn't going. But nobody would join because we were Orthodox. So my grandfather donated the mirrors for the walls in Friend Hall so that I could go to Rodeph Sholom. And as a result, not only did I graduate from the Hebrew school, I also graduated from the high school and was bas mitzvahed there. So those mirrors were part of my history.
Well,
It's a
you're
great
going
story.
to
Wow.
Every Plaque Has a Story for me. It's a great story. Great story. So anybody?
So Carol, if we know people that like Richard Wursel, you know.
I spoke to Paul already.
Okay, good. Okay.
And I think he's going to reach out to Richard.
Okay.
So yes, you gave me their name. I went to school with Paul, and I was talking to him about something else. He already filled out the plaque for me. So yes, great lead. Thank you, Meredith. I take all leads. And I know Jill Lesser was on. She may be off, but she's not going to escape because she'll be doing something too.
Carol, thank you for doing this. You've done a wonderful job. Brought back so many good memories.
Excellent.
Thank you
so much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Renee, Ellen is your daughter. Renee, Ellen Rothwachs. She's your daughter? It's off.
She's probably off.
She's off. Okay. Okay.
No, I'm here. Ellen is my sister. my middle
Ellen is-
sister, and Cheryl is my baby sister.
Oh, okay. Ellen is my neighbor almost. We still live
Oh.
in a Stratfield area.
She looks like she could be my daughter. Thank you.
Sorry. And Jackie, we love to shop in your store. You know, we bought all our supplies.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for the friendship. Thank you. You're very special. Thank you
It was
all.
our pleasure. We really enjoyed ourselves.
Yes,
Okay, everybody,
it was super.
And we miss you, and we miss you.
stay safe, stay well, and keep in touch.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank you.
Thank you,
It was a
Gary.
wonderful program.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.